Imagine this. What if our Easter traditions, the ones many of us grew up with, actually have roots that go way, way back, even before Christianity?
That's exactly what we're diving into today. It's fascinating stuff. We're looking at the pre-Christian Germanic Spring Festival.
And it was centered around a goddess, right? One whose name actually sounds familiar.
Precisely. We're talking about a goddess often called Ostara, or sometimes Eostra, maybe Ēostre, depending on the source.
Ostara. Okay, so the goddess of the dawn, of new beginnings. Tell us a bit more about her.
Yeah, she was essentially the embodiment of spring in the old Germanic understanding. Think of her as that first light breaking after the winter darkness, waking everything up.
And the name itself, Ostara, Easter. It's right there, isn't it?
It really is. It's probably the most direct linguistic link we have back to these ancient origins. Our word Easter likely comes straight from her name.
Wow. So this wasn't just a minor thing. This was a significant time long before the Christian Easter was established.
Oh, absolutely. The timing is crucial here. They celebrated this festival around the spring equinox, usually March, sometimes early April.
The equinox,
Yeah.
that moment when day and night are perfectly balanced.
Exactly. It was a powerful symbol. The light officially overcoming the darkness, winter finally breaking. You could literally feel life returning to the land. It was a promise.
I can imagine that sense of relief and, well, hope must have been immense. So, what symbols were tied into all this? Things we might even recognize today.
Definitely. Some very familiar ones, actually. Take the hare, for example.
The Easter Bunny's ancestor.
Pretty much. The hare was seen as Astara's sacred animal. It represented fertility, the overflowing life force bursting out everywhere in spring, just pure energy.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about the egg? That's such a universal symbol.
Right. The egg was seen as like the cosmic seed, the very origin point of all life.
A symbol of potential.
Exactly. And the tradition of coloring eggs, well, that was likely a way of honoring this new life, celebrating that creative power returning.
It gives decorating eggs a much deeper meaning, doesn't it? And the big fires. Easter fires are still a thing in some places.
Ah, yes, the Osterfeuer. Those are basically ancient sun fires. They were celebrating the sun's victory over darkness. It's a direct legacy from pagan sun worship, a huge, blazing welcome back to the sun's warmth and power.
So hearing all this, it sounds like Ostern, or this original festival, was much more than just a party. It felt deeper. You mentioned it being an initiation festival earlier.
Yes, well, think about it. Just as the earth was being reborn in spring, people felt called to do the same internally. It was a time for personal purification.
How so? Like spring cleaning for the soul.
Kind of, yeah. Letting go of the old stuff, the burdens of winter, the things holding you back, preparing yourself for a new cycle, finding your own strength again, reconnecting with your own inner sun after the dark months.
So it was a spiritual practice as much as a communal celebration.
Very much so. It wasn't just passive observation, it was active participation in that renewal process.
Do we know how they specifically honored Ostara or marked this time? What did the rituals look like?
We know there were songs, those fires we mentioned were central. People would take ritual walks through the woods, watching things wake up. Water was often consecrated, seen as purifying. And decorating young branches was common too,
Branches. Why branches?
as symbols of life reaching upwards again. Straight and strong after winter. Celebrating those first tiny buds was a big deal, a sign winter was truly over.
It's amazing how these deep connections to nature's cycles formed the core of their spirituality. And you mentioned before, some scholars like Marion Green suggest these old ways still echo today.
They do seem to. Even if we don't consciously recognize the origins, elements might persist in folk songs about spring, maybe even in certain traditional dances, perhaps those circle dances echoing old sun rituals.
Subtle traces left in collective memory.
Exactly. The return of the light is such a profound, universal experience. It makes sense that it would leave deep marks on culture over millennia. Ancient cultures, especially wise women within those communities, really understood these rhythms.
Then, of course, came Christianization. How did that shift things? Ostara becomes Easter.
Well, the festival essentially got absorbed and rebranded, you could say. The name Ostara seems to have influenced the Germanic name for the Christian feast, Ostern. The timing stayed roughly the same, tied to spring, light, rebirth.
But the meaning was overlaid.
Right, the focus shifted from the returning sun and the earth goddess to the resurrected Christ. But the underlying themes of new life, Light conquering darkness and renewal are still very present, just interpreted through a different lens.
So if you look closely, the older layers are still visible beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And, understanding these origins can actually enrich how we experience this time of year, regardless of personal beliefs. It connects us to something very old, very human.
Yeah. And for people who want to connect more consciously with those older roots, are there ways to do that? Maybe through personal ritual?
Definitely. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could create a simple ritual for the spring equinox itself, or around the time of Easter, sometimes called Osternacht.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What might that look like?
First, find a quiet spot, ideally outdoors in nature if you can, somewhere you feel comfortable. Maybe light a small, safe fire if possible, or just a candle. That represents the returning sun, the light.
And bring some symbolic items?
Yeah. Gather things that speak of spring, like budding branches, maybe some painted eggs if you like that tradition, stones, seeds, a little bowl of fresh water, maybe some bread or cake. Offerings, essentially.
Okay, got the setting and the symbols. What next?
Well, you could try rising early, maybe greet the dawn facing east. Just acknowledge the new day, the returning light. You could welcome Ostara by name or just speak your intentions for renewal out loud.
And the water you mentioned.
You could hold the bowl of water maybe close to your heart and consciously think about what you want to release. Old patterns, worries, anything heavy from the winter. Then pour the water back onto the earth as a symbolic release.
A sort of purification.
Exactly. Some people also like smudging with cleansing herbs, maybe mugwort, pine resin, something like that, but that's optional. Then place your offerings of branches, eggs, seeds on the ground, maybe near a tree or on a rock as a gesture of thanks and connection.
And then just be.
Pretty much. Take some quiet time. Meditate, reflect, just sit and feel the energy of the season. Ask yourself, what's ready to grow in me? What new possibilities are emerging?
It sounds like a very mindful way to mark the transition.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the symbolism of those items earlier. Could we recap that quickly, the core meanings?
Sure. So the egg, that's the birth of life, the cosmic potential. The hair, life force, fertility, constant renewal. The fire, the sun, spiritual energy, rebirth. Seeds, potential, vision, the unseen getting ready to sprout. And water, purification, memory, transformation.
Powerful stuff packed into simple things. Are there other practices people explore to connect with this?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. Some people work with runes, the old Germanic symbols. For spring, the rune Berkano is really relevant.
Berkano. What's that associated with?
It's the birch tree rune. It stands for birth, growth, protection, new beginnings, healing.
Yeah.
Very much aligned with spring energy. You could meditate on its shape, feel its energy, maybe even draw it.
Like a focus point for that renewal energy.
Exactly. Or some people create a little Berkano talisman to carry. Another idea is creating an Ostara amulet.
An Ostara amulet. What's the purpose of that?
It's meant as a personal reminder of the life cycle, a source of protection and inspiration during this season. You'd make it from natural things. You find a special stone, a piece of wood, maybe add some spring symbols, cleanse it, charge it with your intentions.
And keep it with you.
Yeah, wear it or carry it, especially when you're focusing on growth or starting new projects. And there's one more interesting practice called the egg of the soul.
The egg of the soul. That sounds evocative.
It is. You carefully blow out an egg, so it's hollow. Then you decorate the shell with symbols representing your own hopes, dreams, and intentions for the coming year, things you want to manifest.
Okay, and then what?
Then you take this decorated egg, your soul egg, and you bury it somewhere fertile. In your garden, a pot with soil, somewhere new life is actively growing. As you bury it, you might say a few words, releasing your intentions to the earth to grow.
Wow. That's a beautiful symbolic act of planting your intentions. It really ties everything together, the egg, growth, personal intention.
It does, doesn't it? It connects the personal journey directly with the Earth's cycle.
It's truly amazing when you peel back the layers, isn't it? How much of this ancient understanding of the sun's return, the Earth's renewal, and maybe even the spirit of this goddess Ostara is still interwoven with our spring celebrations.
Yeah, it really is the heart of it. Recognizing these deeper, older roots doesn't take away from current beliefs, but it can add this incredible layer of meaning, making this time of year feel even more profound and personal.
It certainly gives you a lot to think about. This idea that within each of us, there's that same potential for renewal, that connection to life cycles, just like the spring awakening outside.
Exactly. It's an ancient wisdom, always there, waiting for us to reconnect with it. Perhaps the real question is how each of us might choose to tap into that potential for renewal in our own lives this season.